As Ukrainian drones penetrate deeper into the Russian heartland than ever before, Vladimir Putin faces a dual crisis, a crumbling energy infrastructure and an environmental disaster that is bringing the reality of war to his doorstep. This is no longer a distant special operation, it is a battle for the very fuel that keeps the Russian economy breathing. Good day, welcome back to our broadcast. I am your host, Linda, and you're watching The Global Observer. Our top story today explores a massive shift in the theater of war. While the world's eyes have been glued to the trenches of the Donbas, a high-tech long-range campaign of sabotage is unfolding deep behind Russian lines. Ukraine drones are now flying thousands of miles to strike the crown jewel of the Russian economy, its oil refineries and export terminals. These attacks are sending up plumes of smoke so massive that they are visible from satellite feeds in space, and the fallout is starting to turn the tide of public opinion in Moscow. The scale of this deep strike operation is truly unprecedented. In just over 2 weeks, Ukrainian drones have successfully struck the oil refinery and export terminals in the Black Sea town of Donbas on 4 separate occasions. Donbas is not a frontline village. It is a strategic hub located roughly 280 miles from the heat of the combat zone. The result of these strikes have been chaotic. Local governor Vladimir Putin was forced to report that boiling oil products had spilled into civilian streets, damaging cars and infrastructure after an attack on April 18. This isn't just a military loss, it is a direct blow to the safety and security of ordinary Russian citizens who previously felt insulted from the conflict. But the reach of Ukraine's silent wings goes much further than the Black Sea. Just this week, Ukraine confirmed hitting an oil pumping station in the Perm region, an incredible 900 miles away from the Ukrainian border. For 2 consecutive days, these industrial facilities were plummeted, forcing regional government Dmitry Makonin to admit that the war had finally reached the Russian interior. Even the Baltic Sea has not been spared. In Sluga, one of Russia's largest oil and gas export terminals, was hit 3 times in a single week in late March. This facility is 500 miles from Ukraine, and its destruction led regional governor Alexander Drozenkov to make a startling admission. The area around St. Petersburg, Russia's second-largest city, is now officially a frontline region. The psychological impact of seeing the historic capital of the Tsars placed under aerial threat cannot be overstated. President Volodymyr Zelensky has been very clear about the objective. These strikes are intended to be a physical form of international sanctions. He reported on Friday that Russia has already lost at least $7 billion since the start of the year as a direct result of these targeted hits on the energy sector. According to Ukrainian intelligence, experts from key ports like Sluga and Priomorsk have seen a significant drop. Furthermore, these strikes are disrupting refinery capacity at a time when Western sanctions make it nearly impossible for Russia to acquire the high-tech replacement parts needed to fix this complex industrial system. For Putin, it is a race against time. How long can he fund a war when his primary source of income is literally going up in smoke? However, the economic picture is complicated by the ongoing crisis in the Middle East. As the war involving Iran continues to escalate, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has sent global oil prices skyrocketing. This Mid-East windfall has acted as a temporary life support system for the Kremlin. The International Energy Agency reported that Russian crude exports actually rose to 7.1 million barrels per day in March, with revenues nearly doubling from $9.7 billion to $19 billion. Experts like Chris Wiffer CEO of Macro Adversary, suggests that American actions against Iran may have inadvertently saved the Russian federal budget from a crisis that was looming in late February. While the explosions look spectacular on camera, often it is only the vapors in half-empty tanks that ignite. If the loading infrastructure and compressors remain intact, the delivery delays are often only a few days. Yet, there is a secondary consequence of these attacks that many cannot easily fix. You may be asking what it is: the environmental and social fallout. In Turbs and other Black Sea vacation spots, the spectacular fires are followed by something far more sinister. Residents have begun reporting black rain, oily carcinogenic droplets falling from the sky that stain clothes and skin. Local media have circulated heartbreaking images of stray animals with coats stained gray by salt and oil-covered birds and dolphins washed up on the coastline. High levels of benzene, a known carcinogen, have been recorded in the air, forcing residents to stay indoors. For a population that spends its summers vacationing on these shores, the visuals of a dying ecosystem is a much harder pill to swallow than a government report on export numbers. The long-term health consequences for the region could be devastating. Vladimir Putin, a prominent Russian environmentalist, warned that every storm in the coming years would likely bring more oil pollution back onto the coast. While the Kremlin continues to crack down on dissent, the gap between Putin's "everything is under control" narrative and the reality on gray-coated docks and oily rain is becoming impossible to ignore. Ordinary Russians are seeing the physical evidence of a failing defense strategy every time they look out their windows. From a military standpoint, this campaign highlights a massive leap in Ukrainian technological ingenuity. By leveraging domestically assembled simple drone technology, Ukraine is attacking Russia in places that were considered untouchable just 4 years ago. This has forced Moscow to stretch its already thin air defenses to cover thousands of miles of domestic territory, leaving the front line more vulnerable. Ukraine's defense military claims it has more than doubled its deep strike range since 2022, allowing drones to approach targets from multiple directions and bypass traditional countermeasures. As we look toward the future of this conflict, the question remains: will the economic pressure or the domestic unrest break first? Vladimir Putin may be able to weather the loss of $7 billion with the help of high oil prices, but he cannot easily replace the trust of a middle class that sees its backyard transformed into a toxic battlefield. The smoke over the Russian oil factories is a signal that the war has entered a new, more intimate phase. The front line is no longer a line on a map. It is anywhere a drone can fly. And for the Kremlin, that territory is getting larger every day. Thank you for watching The Global Observer. Watch out for more.